Hey guys, we've been asked to do a little, little tabletop here about the intersection of 9/11 and HazMat IQ and how those two events, or how the event of 9/11 led to the formation of HazMat IQ. So I'm going to start. I'll tell you a little bit of what happened with me in 9/11. I was working in the firehouse in Fairfax County. It was my day off. I remember when the towers were hit by the first plane. I watched it on the news. Then I called my captain, who was also off, and I said, "Did you see what happened in New York City?" The first thing that Captain Buckley said was, "Let's get in the car. We got to drive up there," which was a 6-hour drive. So I said, "No, by the time we get up there, it's all going to be over." Well, we're watching that. As I'm talking to him, the second plane hits the tower. Okay, so then we know, stuff's on. And so I continue to watch it. I think about 10 in the morning, got a phone call from the firehouse that I was called back to work, and I had to drive from my house, which was in Winchester, Virginia, to the firehouse, which was about an hour and 15 minutes. It was the most eerie drive I've ever taken in my life. I was driving in, and I thought to myself, we felt like we were under attack that day, and it was like, man, I don't know where I'm heading today, but this is going to be a different kind of a day. And then as I'm driving in, the Pentagon gets hit. For my fire department, we sent like 16 different companies there. I was on the HazMat unit, so we staffed 2 different HazMat units in case the next attack was at the CIA or somewhere in Fairfax County. So that was the morning of 9/11. I ended up working that whole day, ended up not doing anything except watching the TV like everybody else. But it was a day that I'll never forget in my fire department career. So I'll let Chris explain how his day went, but I want to talk about next how that started my HazMat training career, the events of 9/11.
Yeah, I've always said that, life is like a love story with a bunch of horror frames, mysteries, dramas. So that definitely was a dramatic day, 9/11. My USAR team responded. I didn't go with the USAR team. I went on my own to help. I just felt I needed to be there and to help. And lo and behold, it couldn't have happened any better, because when I went up there, while all of my buddies are, at the center, at the pile, working, which eventually went from rescue to recovery at some point, my job was, because I worked with the International Association of Firefighter as a master instructor in HazMat, I knew a couple of the guys up there that were co-instructors, like Jeff Burkowski, Phil McCardle, yeah. And they look at the job, my assignment, what it was. Unbeknownst to me, I went up there.
Right, a lot of people were going up there. They were digging in the pile and doing that. But right. Since all of FDNY was at the pile,
they needed. He says, Chris, there was a handful of us. There was 3 or 4 firefighters that went up. We paid our way to go up there, and our job was to go to the funerals of the firefighters from daybreak to midnight, and to the wakes. Of course, you can imagine, all we did was wear our Class A and go from funeral to funeral to funeral to funeral to funeral to funeral for days.
Because what happened was, since everybody was working, one thing firefighters can do is they do a heck of a job on a funeral.
Right.
So there's thousands of people show up traditionally to funerals, but there was nobody there.
Well, because the FDNY guys, as friends of mine that I've talked with, was cathartic for them to work the pile, to work that rubble, and to look for their colleagues, their brothers. But somebody had to go to the funeral to show respect. And so that was my job, wearing my Class A, and FDNY, Phil and Jeff would drive us from one funeral to one wake, to one funeral to one wake, for days. And there I had an epiphany, I basically said, and again, God has a strange way, man, but I had an epiphany. I didn't even
We didn't know each other
know
back
each-
then.
there. Above the line, below the line didn't even start. And I said, I'm going to make somehow, God, help me find something I can do to save lives of these men and women. And lo and behold, the frame, 9/11, a horrible frame. But here we are later. It was a love story. Because then I meet Joe, because Joe will tell you how he got to be with the International. And Joe and I eventually, and we'll talk about that in a minute or so, joined together to do above the line, below the line, which has been taught now around the world and has already saved lives. So from the worst day, one of the worst days in the fire service in this country, from that chaos, we found life, hope, dream. We didn't give up. And from that necessity came this invention, which was a blessing. It was a blessing. Remember what I've always said in the classroom. We're not the inventor. We're just blessed with the idea. Our job now is to get apostles so you can spread the word, spread the gospel on saving lives. Because what is our mission? Our mission is to our family that at the end of my tour, be it New York City, be it Afghanistan, Miami, Fairfax, wherever, that we go back to our family. Therefore, the grace of God go I, because I can do everything right like they did in 9/11. And I can have a line of duty death. And you did everything right.
So my story, how I got into this HazMat training based on 9/11 was my local over in Fairfax. What we volunteered to do over there was they were having a big memorial service in New York City for all the fallen firefighters. People were coming from all over the world. So what I did to try to help my little part was I took care of staffing the phone lines, that if somebody from Ireland, a firefighter from Ireland wanted to know about this memorial service, we were there to help them answer questions and hotels and that. So during that process, or before 9/11 even, I went to a train the trainer on how to teach HazMat. And one of my instructors, a guy named, an FDNY firefighter named Tommy Gardner, he taught me the train the trainer on how to teach HazMat. He got killed on 9/11. So after I'm manning the phone bank over there in Fairfax, somebody from headquarters in Washington, D.C. comes over, and I said to him, hey, Eric. His name was Eric Lamar. I said, hey, Eric, how do you become an instructor? I want to become a HazMat instructor. I took the training, and now I want to do it. I want to learn how to teach, and I want to teach around the country and help people out. And he said to me, Joe, the stars might be aligned for you. He said, we just lost 3 firefighters at 9/11, and we need instructors. So I'll do what I can do to get you hired as an instructor. So I get hired as an instructor, and the first class I teach is with Chris. We go over to Fairfax, we teach it, we meet, we talk, we become instant friends. We teach the class, and it ends up being phenomenal. Where some of the people said this was the best training they ever had. I got a 4-year degree, and what it was kind of like we do now. Chris would kind of do the technical stuff. I'd interpret the technical stuff and be able to connect it with the firefighters. So we had that instant connection there. But after 9/11, what I did was same thing. As Chris, kind of the same thing. I went up to New York City, and what I did is I ended up driving one of the union representatives. His job was to go to all the different firehouses, see how the guys were doing in the firehouse, go to the rubble pile every night, whether it was 1 in the morning or 3 in the morning. We drive them around, check the rubble pile, and it was something I'll never forget. I think the name of the road is FDR Drive. We're driving FDR Drive, and I'm in a marked fire vehicle, like a buggy, a chief's buggy, and I remember people standing on the side of the road clapping as we're driving down towards the World Trade Center. So that's something that really stuck in my mind about it. I spent about a week up there doing that, and drove, so every night I went to the pile. Every night I saw people work. It was still smoldering as I was there a week later. But that was kind of my introduction to the New York City part of 9/11. Obviously, I met a lot of people. I knew a lot of people in my fire department that had gone to the Pentagon, and they had unbelievable, horrific stories of what they saw in there. So 9/11 hits close to home for me. And like Chris said, though, it allowed me to start my career as a HazMat instructor, which I feel is my natural calling. I just was a firefighter so I could get the job as a teacher. But I love the idea of being able to teach HazMat around the world.
One of the things that happened to me, and I just said you remember, Joe, is that when we got dropped off at 11 o'clock at night, again, as I shared earlier, going to teen funerals, well, we got dropped off a few blocks from the hotel in Little Italy. And all the lights were out because the power was either out or sporadically out. But people were still going out trying to bring their life back to normalcy. And there were some cafes, people maybe having a glass of wine, having a bite to eat, and we get dropped off, and the FDNY van drives away. We were in Class A. There were 4 of us. I think it was I forgot who they were, but when we were walking down the sidewalk so that we can find a table to sit somewhere in Little Italy, as we were walking by, the diner stood up, and some would salute, and all would applaud, and it was the same feeling that you had, you know.
How proud to be a firefighter then,
How proud
right?
to be a firefighter, to be an American, to be in New York City, and to be there to back the heel. We sat down eventually to have dinner, and our money was no good. The owner comes back was a chef and says, "Your money here is no good." And he gave us I mean, to this day, it touches me, man. And so, and I didn't know what. I did not know, but I said, God, I have to do something, man. I got to please, I want to do something to help, to give back to the country and to the service. And then...
I remember what happened with Nick Del Rey, right? One of the guys we knew when we taught, he got promoted because the chief of HazMat ended up dying on 9/11. This guy was just a regular fire battalion chief and got promoted to the HazMat.
That was Chief Jack Fanning.
Who got killed, yeah. Well, this chief...
And Joe, just to share something with that, a chief in the hot zone. I mean, that's what this man did at FDNY. The chief usually is in the command post. This chief's in the hot zone.
Remember John Palillo, right?
John Palillo, which I saw on January the 1st. I said, "Chris, you're coming up next week to teach, sometime in the next few weeks to teach the recruits at the Rock."
And this guy, world-renowned, well, not world-renowned, but known through the fire department as in great shape. Well, that great shape got him high in the towers before they fell. So that guy passed away because of that. But, then HazMatIQ, we're going to fast forward a little bit, and we have this friend who's the chief of HazMat. And out of the blue, they lost so many firefighters that day that they were just promoting. And he got promoted to HazMat. And he liked the way me and Chris taught. He said, "Can you help me with this HazMat stuff? I don't know, I'm not sure exactly what I'm doing here, but I'm running the whole HazMat division. And I got a lot of new people." So we started working, teaching for him, and he just teaching for the international, I think at the time, right? We taught the international, but he loved how simple we made things. So we fast forward now to when we started HazMatIQ, he wanted us to go up there and teach HazMatIQ to all these new HazMat technicians. So what we do now is we go up, every single firefighter in New York City who's in special ops gets HazMatIQ training to make it easy to understand. Well, if you remember, right at the first time we went up there, if you look at our logo here,
yes,
it's got 343 on there, and it says "We will never forget."
It used to be 243.
Right, because we said, we don't want to use the same number over again, so let's make it 243. So we were up in New York City. One of the firefighters up there said, if you put 343, that would signal the symbol that would be the number of firefighters that died on 9/11.
It's almost honoring him in a classy, understated way. And of course, we will never forget.
So that's where the 343 comes from. So, I think our careers, we were fortunate to work in a great career and met great people. We met each other. We had this instant bond. People think we're brothers. And being that close together, close to each other, it was easy for us to bounce ideas off of each other. If I was having a bad day, Chris would pick me up. If I'm ready to quit, he says, no, don't quit. No, don't quit. Right?
Crisis intervention.
Yeah, yeah. So it's been a hell of a ride, but the ride started, you could say it started because of 9/11.
Well, when we incorporated, we were doing work in Chicago, local 2, to make all their firefighters hazmat technician. It was a long project, and we incorporated. It asked on the form, when do you want the corporation to be recognized as starting when? And you know, there's some great days you could go for the IRS or for fiscal or calendar, but we said, screw all that shit, man. What's the reason, really? Who are we doing this for? And the date of incorporation of HazMatIQ was 9/11.
Because of those guys.
Because of those guys. And hopefully, you know, we left the place better. And, you know, just a little side note on myself, I owe everything to the fire service. I have a son that, if we reverse engineer my son, was a woman that I met because of a blind date of another fireman. Who cares? She's my ex-wife now, right? But she did give me a son.
It's a good chapter.
Right,
the
it's a good
story,
chapter.
right?
It's a
Your
good
love
chapter.
story.
Right. I'm still going to therapy. The country opens the door to me because I'm Cuban and the whole Bay of Pigs and communism. So I can't repay the country. I can't repay the service no matter what I do. This is only a small token of what you've given me. Everybody out there, be it American, be it a firefighter, I owe you literally my life.
Yeah, and so I just turned 60 last week. Chris is going to be 61.
Yes.
So we're literally winding down our career.
But I look better than him because through chemistry I take formaldehyde, right? Which is
Right.
That's a preservative. He takes a catalyst, which accelerates the chemical reaction.
I smoke marijuana. You drink, so.
Right. So listen, we just want on this day to salute you, and to thank you for everything you do. You're unsung heroes, men and women in uniform.
Be proud of what you do.
Men and women in uniform that only have seconds or minutes to make decisions.
Put their lives on the line.
To put their lives on the line.
For others,
For others, like it says in the Bible. There ain't no greater price than to lay the life for another person, a stranger. So I salute you guys. And on 9/11, let's honor the 343, not just the 343, but also all the firefighters, all the men and women in the military, all the men and women in uniforms that protect us every day for what makes this country the best country in the world. Nobody's leaving this country because it's a great country. Thank you very much.